So, Brother Pius, thought we would talk about something kind of vulnerable and difficult and yet somewhat important. The famous words of one of my professors in the seminary, what do we do when God's will and our will doesn't coincide?
It's a tough thing, especially when you do the best you can and it seems like that isn't enough. Hi everybody, and welcome to Franciscan Fridays. I'm Brother Pius Gagne, here with Father Luke Mary Fletcher, and we are happy to be back with you. Again, as I often do when we start, just invite you to like, subscribe, tell your friends, take out a billboard in Manhattan if you want to, get people to pay attention to this podcast so that we can grow it. And also feel free to leave us in your comments anything you'd like us to cover in the future. And with that, Father Luke.
Brother Pius. So this is going to be a little difficult, actually.
Yeah.
So obviously there's all these podcasts out there. So here we are, another podcast. Mm-hmm. And recently we've had a few of our videos come out kind of addressing some of the Fatima controversies and questions surrounding the consecration of Russia, was the third secret was or was not published, and
yep.
And the list goes on and on and on. And of course, already some of the comments in some of these videos are just really uncharitable and snarky, and I don't know. And we've been praying for everybody, and I thought something unique that we can bring to this podcast, like a unique perspective, and just kind of praying over some really difficult topics. And this whole question of some of the Fatima controversies has really sparked a really kind of a new kind of depth of prayer for me as the chaplain here. And I'm thinking about questions regarding, how God has created our life here. Like we would love to have prophecies and like secret knowledge about what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
And the thing that leads people to do things like tarot cards or Ouija boards or crystal balls or palm reading or seeking out some sort of, like alternative means. That I think there's a Catholic version of that, even like an approved apparition like Fatima. Sometimes some elements of the message could be treated in some sort of kind of conspiracy theory, fear about the future and the end times and the Antichrist, all these things. They tend to get a lot of clicks and views, which is what everyone's looking for with podcasts. But then, kind of going deeper into that in a sense of like my own, call to pastorally help people as a priest, but even like our own struggles to think about that, maybe there's something kind of gone amiss in some of the attitudes with some people regarding some of these things, and to kind of circle back around to the fact that in this life, we don't know what later today is going to happen. And somehow this is part of God's plan. He created our lives this way. And the bottom of that is a huge invitation for each one of us to trust in the Lord.
Yeah.
And he gave us the scriptures. He gave us the sacraments of the church. He gave us the magisterium, the teaching office of the church, the Pope and the bishops in union with him. And maybe because of COVID, maybe because of government corruption or even church leadership corruption, we're kind of in this spot where people have a distrust of just about everyone and anything.
Yeah.
And then also a certain amount of, I don't know, is this fear? Is it a desire for control? Is there...
Yeah, I think psychologically, human beings don't do well with not knowing, right? In fact, let me just take it back to the beginning,
right,
which is that the fruit of the tree of good and evil carried with it a desire for knowledge.
Right.
And I mean this with all charity. Like each of us, our personalities, we all have foibles. We all have weaknesses. We all have areas where we're going to struggle, propensities to different extremes and things. And I think one that is a sort of perpetual struggle in the life of the church is the tension between faith and certitude, right? And I think that a lot of people, since the Gnostic heresies in the early days of the church, people really like having knowledge that nobody else does. Like, we're the ones who are, doing God's will perfectly. We know what God actually wants, But then also, and there is something to prophecy. There is something to wanting to have a handle on the future and kind of wanting to know and have control. And when we don't, it can be very terrifying. And I think that some of that goes back to our experiences in life where when things were uncertain, they were unsafe, right? And that sort of primal sense of, I need things to be firmly, something I can grab onto and it's going to protect me and keep me safe. And, and I think that there is, thanks be to God for the Catholic Church, for the magisterium, for the infallible teaching of the Holy Father and the bishops in union with him, all of that. There are truths of our faith that are non-negotiable, that are solid bedrock. But within those, even within those truths, the exact hows and whens and all of it, it's not entirely clear. And I think the very best place to see that play out is in the life of our Lord. You have the religious experts who knew the scripture better than anybody, and they were the ones who most vehemently rejected Jesus, right, most often. I mean, there were some who converted eventually, but right, this uncertainty is really terrifying for us as people. And so we can turn to these extreme interpretations of things where it's like, well, and you argue over, minute details. Like, I'm thinking about all the controversy over the consecration of the world and Russia. Right. Russia, it's like if John Paul II consecrated the world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, did he fulfill the consecration? As though God is some sort of vending machine, and if we put the exact right currency in, God will give us back what we want.
Right. So, bro, instead of going like theological, I thought maybe this time, why don't we try to go more personal? So I know even with the words of Jesus, this is God in the flesh. There's just nothing but like contradictory interpretations.
Yeah.
He meant this or he meant that. And then you'll see this also in the writings of Sister Lucia. So, I mean, just so everyone knows, like the page that we're on is we want to be faithful and authentic to what happened at Fatima. And even in what we have, some of the writings and letters of Sister Lucia, I have some of her memoirs here. You get the impression that her whole life, she was constantly getting weird letters from people asking all sorts of strange, minute, and she was like explaining herself again and again and again. When our position, which is really we got from her, is that what Mary was asking us to do is live our faith.
Yeah.
Live our Catholic faith,
yeah,
the sacraments of the church, the Gospels, spiritual corporal works of mercy, praying the rosary every day, nothing esoteric, nothing weird, no secret Gnostic knowledge or whatever.
Yeah.
But, in praying over that, and I'm wanting to be loving and helpful to people who maybe find themselves in that place, dropping snarky comments on videos on the internet all day long and obsessing over weird little details over some of these things. And to realize that, on some level, I think even for myself, there have been moments in my journey where my trust in the Lord was being tested, where, we all love like a story that's miraculous and then everyone lived happily ever after. And a lot of movies end that way because there's something in our psyche that wants that. Whereas maybe I know the years of doing ministry with the poor and the homeless, and really pouring it out and loving people as Jesus asks us to do. And sometimes things could take a tragic turn, or things that appear to not work out. And so I thought maybe to acknowledge that, and maybe some of that might be behind when people find themselves in a place, kind of obsessing of strange details and being fearful. And so, but I think of all the people I know who could speak beautifully into this area, I think it's you, knowing you as I do and being missioned out here together as chaplains, but just a little something of your own spirituality. I mean,
Sure.
You are named after Padre Pio.
That's true.
Who we just had his feast day. And while he had so many supernatural charisms and gifts, if you actually get to know him, you realize he suffered a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's his own fault. He did pray, "I wish to be inebriated with suffering." That's a prayer I don't recommend anyone pray.
Oh, help us, Lord.
Yeah, I think, you said it well, that it's a journey of faith, and that often it's easy to look retrospectively and say, "Oh, that worked out fine." But I know in my own experience, so often, so frequently, you do the very, very, very best you can to be faithful to what you believe to be God's will, and it doesn't work out. And it's not any lack of effort. It's not any lack of fidelity, at least not as far as I know. It's not any, God is not sadistic. A friend of mine will often say, "Is God allowing this because he loves you or because he hates you?" Right? And I think that that's a good question to ask ourselves. I can say my health has gotten in the way of so many endeavors that I've attempted to do, that I've tried to do.
Why don't you share a little bit about your birth? Because I think that sets the stage for a lot of things that have happened.
For sure. So when I was in my mom's womb, different things happened where her original OBGYN said that I would be a miscarriage and basically told my mom to get over it. This was not the era that we're in now, where we're very compassionate to people. And
can you imagine how hurtful a comment like that would be? Yeah,
absolutely. And by God's grace, my mom and my dad had the courage to say, "Well, we're going to keep fighting for this kid." And the doctor who was on call when things escalated to kind of a do or die, literally, moment, this pro-life Catholic doctor said, "I think we can save this kid." Had my mom go to Yukon, the hospital there. And my mom, I think, was in bed for like a month on bed rest, getting steroid injections. And I was born about 2.5 months premature. The day I was born, I was baptized because they thought I was going to die. Wow. I like to joke that the Lord didn't want me to have any time where original sin would have more sway over me than it needed to, And they basically told my parents to say goodbye to me. And the next morning, miraculously, my grandfather had put a miraculous medal in the incubator.
Wow, that's the medal of the Virgin Mary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah.
We both have one on our rosary. Yeah. And I really believe that it's through the intercession of the Mother of God and the grace of baptism. When the next day, the doctor said, "We don't know what happened, but he went from 100% oxygen to 60% oxygen. He's doing well, and thank God." I'm alive, and as a result of that, I have a disability. I have cerebral palsy, and that, along with many other things, has been both a source of tremendous pain, physically, emotionally, spiritually, but also a source of tremendous grace, because I have found that even though there are these times where it really feels like failure. Like I had to drop out of high school in my junior year because I was so sick, and ended up restarting. But if it wasn't for me getting sick in my junior year, I wouldn't know Jesus the way that I do. It was an occasion for my, full-on, wholehearted conversion to the Lord. And, that pattern seems to repeat itself. The Lord uses physical suffering to get my attention, uses physical impediments to things, me trying as hard as I can to accomplish things, and seeing them really kind of blow up in my face. And it's painful. Like, it's extremely difficult. And it would be, and it is very, very attractive to want to have some way to control what's happening. Right. I have, in my background, I'm like part Polish, part Southern Italian, part Irish, part German,
100% Connecticut.
100% Connecticut, wicked good. But so all of that means I'm stubborn.
Right.
And I often tell the Lord how he should accomplish things. Like I think I have a better handle on things than the Lord does sometimes. And the Lord constantly shows me that I don't. I don't know what's best for me. I don't know what's best for other people. And what comes to mind for me, I was just reading this book by a Carmelite priest, and he was talking about Saint Thérèse and her radical trust in Jesus, her radical love for Jesus. And it's easy. Her life is probably one of the lives that is most glossed over, as though it's this like saccharine, really sweet. Right. She didn't really do anything. That's one of my favorite things. Like the sisters, when St. Therese was dying, were like, what are they going to say about her? She didn't do anything, right? Meanwhile, doctor of the church, patroness of the missions,
wow,
canonized saint, and so it's really easy to want to get involved, to get our fingers sort of on the strings of the world, to get our fingers on the strings of God's will happening in our lives. St. Therese wanted to be a missionary. She wanted to go start a Carmel in, I think it was Vietnam, and she died before that could happen. She was generous, and yet her circumstances dictated that generosity was like this incredibly concentrated laser beam of love. And I think that that's the invitation, is that we are called not to have all the answers. We're called to a radical, childlike trust in the Lord, that even when it hurts, we can know that maybe the divine physician is performing surgery. And I don't say this lightly. I mean, recent circumstances in my life have upended some goals that I had, right, and have made it very difficult. My health has continued to be a source of frustration for me, for my doctors, for everyone around me. But I think that there's sort of like, it really sets things in contrast. Because on the one hand, you can become bitter, resentful, and an atheist. Like I've heard, and I'll do the thing that I often do. I have heard what you're hearing in your head sometimes, which is what Job's wife said to him: curse God and die.
Right. Like
God is not good. He's potentially sadistic if he exists at all, right? Like that is a temptation. That's the satanic temptation. If you're not going to let me rule, then I'm out. But the other side of that coin is to say, to not fall into the temptation that Adam and Eve did, which was, let me grasp at knowledge. Let me grasp at the power. Let me grasp at the control. But rather to follow the example of Jesus, to go to that lowest place where even, as Job says, even if he were to slay me, it's the Dewey Rheims translation, even if he were to slay me, I will trust him.
Then that's probably a reference to Genesis 22.
Right.
When Abraham and Isaac,
Yeah. And I think that Jesus lives that out perfectly. Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, my God, why have you abandoned me? And yet, into your hands, Father, I commend my spirit.
Wow, thanks so much for that. As you were sharing, I was thinking about people like Saint Bernadette and Sister Lucia Fatima, who, had mystical experiences and visions, etc., but majority of their life they were actually living normal life of faith, like all of us. As St. Paul say, we walk by faith and not by sight. And certainly, from what I've read, like deep dives into the story of Lourdes, and obviously Fatima, there were questions, there were confusions, there were people that misinterpreted things that were said, or kind of. And it was a little bit of a crucifixion for some of the visionaries, who were, at the end of the day, were just normal people, actually.
Yeah.
And but it kind of highlights something that's kind of there for all of us. We have to resist the temptation to run after like an oracle at Delphi, or everybody, the coming prophecies of this, that, or the other thing, and really come back to the Gospels, come back to our faith, and come back to the idea of having a personal relationship with the Lord, and discovering his will for us through discernment and prayer, and, whether it be our local parishes and ministries we might be involved in, etc. Tried and true means by which we're to grow in holiness. live, deep, beautiful spiritual lives. And so you wonder if maybe we're facing unprecedented levels of distraction and confusion because of the internet and because of whatever else is happening here on planet Earth, and how people, almost like a ship without a rudder or a sail, you just kind of be blown around.
Yeah.
And to kind of circle back to what God has given us.
Yeah.
And that he's real, and that we can all have a relationship with him. Praying over this topic, I was thinking about the words of St. Peter, his sermon at Pentecost, which you read in Acts of the Apostles, where he quotes the prophet Joel, where God will pour out his spirit on all flesh. And so there's a call for all of us to have a deep, intimate relationship with the Lord, and what that means in your day-to-day, trusting him, living our faith, staying focused on how we're supposed to be kind of following Jesus.
Yeah.
That's what you see in the writings of Sister Lucia, and, I kind of just have a hunch some of these other things are actually just distractions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that it's really easy to gauge ourselves by hagiography, right? The lives of the saints as they're written as we read them, where it's like, well, if God really loves me, I'll have whatever sort of mystical insight or knowledge or all this sort of stuff. But I think that the way God gauges things and the way we gauge things are very, very different. Like, look at the single greatest human person who ever lived, Our Lady. Like, yes, the angel Gabriel appeared to her. Yes, she had Jesus with her, but the majority of her life was spent in humble silence. So humble, so silent, that the people of Nazareth, who had the Holy Family living in their town and everyone around them, was like, can anything good come from Nazareth? Thank you, Nathaniel, right? I think that maybe the call for us in this time where everybody is posturing on social media, everybody wants to be extraordinary and special and trending, to walk the ordinary way, to walk the simple way, and to trust that, like, the Lord knows our hearts. And if, like St. Thérèse, we can focus all of that love and desire to be pleasing to him, the desire for holiness, and let that be purified of all the ego that says it's all about me, right? But subtly, right? Like, I'm so humble, whoa, but rather to just trust and to do the little things, the simple things, the basic things, and realize, like, that's the stuff that's going to get you through the pearly gates.
Right.
That's the stuff.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for watching. Kind of a bit of a different take on the topic here today, but if you'd like to leave a comment somehow that helps the algorithm, I don't understand these things, or subscribe, comment, share it with people, I don't know. And we'll see you next Friday.